Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Thanks for coming back. All for United, of course. We've been not doing so many shows recently with lots of changes going on in the background, but I hope you're all well. Get your comments in today. Obviously, we're going to be talking about 4-3-3 potentially. I've said for a very long time that I think that is the plan going forward. Obviously, we're going to talk about getting in the number 6, which we really need, regardless of what formation we play, and a few other topics. But yeah, get your comments in. Make sure you like, subscribe, and I'll see you in a second.
Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from Passionate Reds, only on All for United.
Yes, boys. What a lovely, beautiful intro. How did you find that?
It's beautiful. Not
all at once.
Pretty good.
Good. Yeah, I'm pleased with that. I'll report back to Ben. I'm sure he'll be happy with that. I hope you're all doing really well. Obviously, we're going to talk about the new formation. I bet Stu is absolutely raring to go. Connor, I'm going to come to you first, buddy. Obviously, we've potentially made a few signings, hopefully in the next few days, taking it a little while, isn't it? So it'd be nice to get a few over the line. I read reports today about certain players may not be playing in the position that they have been playing. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this potential formation, and what would you do?
I mean, it's good. I like the 4-3-3. I just don't think we've got the players that suit it at the minute. I think when you play a 4-3-3, you want a very good holding midfielder, which we don't have. McTominay and Fred are both kind of box-to-boxy players, in my opinion, and certainly not going to put Pogba or Bruno there, right? So I don't think we've got a good enough holding midfielder. And to be honest, we don't really have out-and-out wingers, and I know Stu has spoken about this a lot as well. When you play, unless we're going to play a narrow 4-3-3 with inside forwards, kind of like I said, Martial, Rashford like to come inside a lot. They're not natural wingers. It's not going to be Dan James, is it, starting? And obviously Sancho is a natural winger out on the right. So I think it's the formation that I would like to see us going forward. Do we have the personnel for it, though? So I think it all heavily depends on recruitment. I think that's why Ollie's been playing the 4-2-3-1, because we don't have that one holding midfielder that can play in front of the back four. So, yeah, just briefly, yeah, I want us to play that moving forward, but I don't think we've got the personnel yet to be able to do it.
Thanks, mate. Caught me by surprise there. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, it is all dependent, as I said as well, about recruitment, and yeah, we'll have to wait and see, won't we? I mean, number 6 is crying. We're crying out for a number 6. We've said this all bloody season. The amount of conversations and the poor people watching the show, like, you know, we've spoken about that way too many times. But it is crying out, and obviously there's talks about potentially Pogba leaving, and McTominay probably being playing further forward. So we need to really hone in on that number 6 position. Jamie, I'm going to come back to you next, buddy. Would you agree with a 4-3-3, or would you like to see something different? Do you think that holding midfielder is an absolute must?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I agree mainly with what Connor said there, is that I don't see us having the personnel to actually operate in a 4-3-3 effectively. I think it's the formation that we'd all like to see. Like, out of everything that we could play, I think it's the one that probably offers us more attacking threat going forward. We've said numerous times on this channel that nobody likes a double pivot, because all you're doing is 2 players are doing one person's job, and you lose some of that fluidity and some of that manpower in the midfield. I think if Varane does eventually come in, you know, I think that's starting to develop into one of those will he, won't he transfers. But I think that that's a bit more of a shored up defence, which probably allows us to not necessarily rely on a really dominant ball-winning, defensive-minded 6. We might be able to play someone more progressive. But even so, like, that is still something that I don't really see us having in the squad at the minute. I don't really trust McTominay or Fred to play that role on their own. Matic from about 6 years ago probably would have been perfect, but as we've seen with him several times this season, he just doesn't have the legs to play that role. And obviously, there's things to be said there that, you know, if we then play Pogba and Bruno as 8s, does that work? Do we play sort of a non-symmetrical midfield 2 ahead of the 6? Do we play an 8 and a 10? And if so, are you effectively just playing a 4-2-3-1 just with a fancy formation at that point? So, yeah, I think if we have a 6 lined up that we're going to sign, the likes of Declan Rice, Wilfred and Ndidi would be perfect to play in that role, to play in that anchor. But for now, I still don't see us having the personnel. I think if we did have the personnel, we might have seen it played against Derby, but we didn't. We still seem to play a 4-2-3-1. So, yeah, I'd like to see us play it, but I just don't see where the personnel are coming in at the minute.
Yeah, fair point, sir, mate. Good to have you back on, by the way. I know it's been a couple of weeks, buddy, and good to see you looking well. So cheers for coming on, bro. Yeah, Stu, I'm going to come to you next, mate. You'll be pleased to know you'll be able to talk about your spearhead formation, because I feel that the midfield will have an effect on the front 3 or 2 or whatever it is that you want to talk about. So talk to me about that and tell me who you think should be in the midfield 3 or 4. You're on mute, bro. On mute.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, the interesting thing about formations, you see it a lot. When I was a nipper, I used to play Championship Manager. I used to talk to my mates about formations all the time. But actually, reality of football is completely different to what you see on a computer screen or what you see put up on a tactics board. Because a formation really is designed for you to defend. You need to defend in some kind of formation, but you don't really attack in any real formation. And if you watch as a game evolves from the kickoff, you'll see that players tend to drift in and out of certain positions. It's only when when teams are out of possession, they tend to come into some kind of formation. So moving forward, they've already said, let's play this attacking formation. It doesn't really necessarily work out that way. What a 4-3-3 does, and if you want to call it that, it allows Ollie to do something he didn't have the balls to do last season, and that is utilise more of his attacking threat through different games and through slightly different patterns of play than what he did when he was playing a 4-2-3-1, whatever you want to call it. And so you're always going to have a focal point. I think I've always favoured an out-and-out 9 anyway. So say, for example, Cavani's your 9. It enables the 2, because we don't play, Connor's right, we don't play with what we call conventional wingers. Conventional wingers would get chalk dust on their boots. It was an old saying back in the 80s and the early 90s. That's what a winger was there to do. Stand out on the touchline, get at your fullback, get your crosses in for 1, 2, centre forwards and a possible deep running midfielder. The way that we play, or the way that modern day teams play, and you can call it a false 9 if you want, that's perfectly fine. But the way that teams play today is they utilise 2 switchable players. And what I mean by that is, just say, for example, we set up with, Fred as the 6. You set up with Pogba, maybe set up with Bruno, and then set up with, Sancho and Rashford and then Cavani. It allows Bruno, Rashford and Sancho to intertwine more cleverly than what our 4-2-3-1 does. And Bruno's at his most dangerous when he's able to not run the show, but when he's able to have that freedom that a 4-3-3 formation would give him. And also it enables us to attack width-wise if we want to, but also attacks us to enables us to attack inverted. And I often talk about the second half of the season, why we stopped winning penalties, and that is because our wider players, if that's what you want to call them, stopped for whatever reason going diagonal towards the 18-yard box. When you attacked on a diagonal towards the 18-yard box, which I suppose a 4-3-3 would allow us to do more, you get more penetration, you get more chance of winning penalties. The other side of it is we've already spoken. It allows Sancho, allows Rashford, Marshall, Greenwood, etc., to get some crosses in for Cavani, where we know he's dangerous in the air. The other player it does bring into play a lot is Van der Beek, because with Bruno, you can push Bruno up, so you could sacrifice Rashford or Sancho. So you could push Bruno up, again, to play behind Cavani alongside a player. And it enables Solskjaer to have 2 good ball playing midfielders if Pogba stays, or you could play Pogba and Bruno. So it gives Ollie a much better way of utilising the squad than he had last season. But it does hinge on a CDM, a good quality CDM. CDM that can break up the play, can get a hold of it, drop it 2 or 3 yards. He commences the attack. I've said it before, he's kind of your ringmaster, and he's the one that is, delegating where players should be at any one time on the pitch. I spoke about segments as well. And the 4-3-3 allows those two, because don't forget, you go in Pogba, Greenwood, or Pogba, Marshall, Van der Beek, or Bruno and Sancho. And there was those two to work together in a bigger pocket of space, and it will add to a more flowing game.
Yeah, some really good points there, buddy. Really good points. Thank you very much. Just touching upon this comment here, which I think is a very, very good one, actually. Fred, good to see you back, buddy. In order to play more attacking, we need better defensive players, which you've kind of touched upon a little bit there, Stu, as well. For Amway, the defence, however, we do need that quality defensive midfielder. Charlie, I'm going to come to you next, buddy. I hope you're well, mate. Good to see you on again. Do you agree with that? Do you think that, obviously, we have been talking about defenders and obviously, well, a defender and obviously being a huge topic and something we need to fill. But do you think that will enable us to be able to play 4-3-3 and play that attacking football, as Stu said?
Well, I think already, Mark, I think Man United haven't got a problem with scoring goals. I think we've seen that with the amount of goals that Man United have scored, particularly in the Premier League. Obviously, the Southampton game might have skewed that a little bit with the 9, obviously. But in terms of scoring goals, there isn't a problem. My problem has been more the defensive side of things. And I think, obviously, bringing Varane in will obviously help. I still think there's some big issues in terms of coaching with the back four. I think Wan-Bissaka positionally. I think Eric Ramsey, that's something that he needs to look at, particularly at the back post. Wan-Bissaka gets caught out a lot. And I think, we went a goal down within 2 or 3 minutes away at Leipzig, and that was a big factor in that. But I think with the 4-3-3, obviously we haven't had that CDM who can play week in, week out, who can sit at the base of that midfield. I think Nemanja Matic has been underused. I think he should have been used a lot more, but that's just a personal opinion. A lot of people don't agree. Some people think he's past it. I don't think he fully is past it. I still think he's a quality player. I think we saw that against Derby, just the little cameo he had in the second half. But Matic isn't going to start every game now, so we've obviously got a side of CDM, and we cannot play 4-3-3 with the players that we've got at the moment. So obviously it would be great if we could bring that CDM in. Obviously, there's been links to Ruben Neves. Funnily enough, I put a tweet out a day before the rumours came out, Ruben Neves to Man United, who says no, and a lot of people are saying no. And I said, well, I'll tell you now, Ruben Neves for 35 million is a much better value deal than Rice is for
You know what? It's funny, isn't it? Just very quickly, mate. We spoke about this on one of the Euro shows, didn't we? We were talking about the Portugal squad and Neves being potentially available. And I agree with you, and I think it actually would be quite an astute signing.
Yeah, I just think, a lot of people overvalue pace in the modern game. And there's no doubt that, if you look at the top midfielders nowadays, you've got to have a big engine because the game has evolved. But, Ruben Neves has been playing as a DM for Wolves last season. And if you actually look at his defensive stats, I've actually been doing some research on it. Compared to Fred McTominay, he's as good defensively, if not better. And going forward, he makes more key passes, not as many progressions, because obviously we know Fred's dribbling is actually a little bit underrated. Fred can get out of a tight situation, and McTominay can break through with his runs. But in terms of progressive passes, Neves is clear. And I just think it adds a different dimension to our game, because I think the big issue, though, for Ollie, we talk about CDM all we like, the big issue for Ollie is to get Bruno Fernandes playing as an 8, because Bruno Fernandes' average position on the pitch in many games has been past Cavani, almost higher than Cavani. Cavani has been playing sort of a false 9. He's been the number 9, Bruno Fernandes, and he needs to be restricted more. I think these players enjoy playing under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I think you can see they enjoy playing football, but I said the other day, whether you're liked by the manager, whether you whether you're a likable team, it matters for absolutely nothing in football. You've got to win. Jose Mourinho said, good guys, they never win. And it's true. This is a very likable Man United team. But I think that to go to the next stage, I think bringing Varane in will add a bit of a bit more experience in there. And I think bringing Ruben Neves in, he's quite of a bitey player. I think he gets into challenges. I think he's got that sort of element I like about him. I'm not so keen on Declan Rice. I think he's a decent player, but I think he's very overpriced. And I also think that in this system that we're going to play, we need a 6 that can progress the ball. And Declan Rice's key passes per game are very, very low. He passes sideways, he passes backwards, which isn't a problem to keep possession flowing, but a lot of his passes are short and he doesn't take risks. And I think with Bruno, I think that's his biggest challenge, though, getting Bruno to be an 8 rather than a 10. I don't know how he's going to do it, but I don't have a lot of faith in Ollie and the coaching staff to be able to carry out this 4-3-3 from what I've seen last season. I'm doubtful, but I hope he proves me wrong.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Obviously, inexperienced Ollie, and he's been used to playing that 4-2-3-1 for a long time now. Really, ever since he's come in, pretty much. So it's going to be hard to break away from habits, I guess. So I've just seen, thanks to Connor and actually someone in the chat. So thank you for both of that. Paul Pogba has rejected a new contract at Man United worth $350,000 a week and is set to leave this summer. PSG are ready to pay 45 million, but United are only willing to sell if his 50 million valuation is met. Henry, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh God.
Here we go again.
It's not the news I wanted. It's not the news I wanted at all. It's not the news anyone wanted. I thought personally, not having seen that, I thought if we offered him a new deal, he would wait until we've either signed or haven't signed a defensive midfielder. But he's clearly not. And it's that. I have some choice words about Raiola, and I'm not going to say them on here because I'll get kicked off. So
say it, Henry. Say it. Just say it, man.
He's a fat prick. Basically, he's a manipulative. He's like an abusive person in a relationship. He really is. I can guarantee you 100% Pogba is not driving this for him to leave Man United. I can guarantee you it's Raiola. He wants his last big payday before agents get, stuck in the mud. And I can't stand him. He's a money grabber. He'll sell himself for anything. He's an arsehole. And I absolutely despise him. And the sooner he's gone from the footballing world, the better, because he is rinsing every club he goes around. Pogba will leave PSG, and if he goes there, he'll leave PSG in a year and a half if Raiola can get a good deal for him. Seriously, it's embarrassing. So, but that's really annoyed me because I like Pogba a lot. I've said it before. I think this is on us, though. Honestly, I think this is on United. We didn't sign a quality defensive midfielder last year. Pogba hasn't had the license to play where he wants to play. I kind of agree but disagree with the Bruno situation because he's played at number 8 for Portugal before and he's played there for Sporting as well. So, it's not completely unfamiliar for him to play that role. And I think those two alongside a quality defensive midfielder, you'd have a really good side, and also a side that I think is more balanced than people are making it out to be. I think that's more balanced because Pogba's not a out-and-out attacking midfielder. He's a box-to-box player. He always has. So there's frustration. I'm not happy at all at that. And Raiola, he won't watch this, but if you are, you can go fuck yourself, mate. Like in the nicest way possible.
I'm not sure there's a nice way of saying that, really, Henry. But thanks, mate. Thanks for trying. You do sum it up well, really. And I think the majority of the problem, quite honestly, is not Paul Pogba. I think it is Mino, and I think you're absolutely right. I've said this myself before. He'll move to PSG. Because it's a bit of a luxury, get paid a lot of money, have a few good years in the French league. And let's be honest, this is no disrespect. He will win everything. but is it really? Is it really on merit? I just don't understand really, other than money, why you'd really want to go there, and it's disappointing.
Say one thing: they've got a defensive midfielder, PSG. They've got two. They've got two proven in Adressage and Danilo. Like, he wants a defensive midfielder to play along. He's been begging for it, seriously. And we haven't given it to him. That's all I can really say on that.
If I may interject,
Go for it, yeah.
I always talk about the path of least resistance for footballers. It's never really about money, because when you're on 250 grand a week, 300 grand a week, what's an extra 50 a week going to do to your standard of living? Absolute nothing. It's years ago, back in the 80s and the 90s, players would migrate up to Scotland and they go and play for Rangers and Celtic. Players who hadn't necessarily won much at all, if anything, in the Premier League or the First Division, and they'll go and play for one of the big two in a minor league, and up their medal count so their CV looks better. And when you look at players that have joined City since 2008, it's a path of least resistance to winning some kind of trophy. When you look at PSG, since the Qataris took over, which I think was in 2010, wasn't it, or 2012, somewhere along those lines, players have migrated to them. Again, it's the path of least resistance to winning a title or a few trophies. And so it was never the case, by the way, with Real Madrid or Barcelona. People went there for other reasons, sporting reasons. But clubs like PSG, clubs like City, and in the past, clubs like Rangers and Celtic, players used to migrate there purely and simply to up their CV and their medal count. And you've always got to question the sporting values and the sporting merits of it, and whether or not players have got the balls to try and help a club get back to its former days, its glory days, or believe in a package, a sporting package, not a monetary package, but a sporting package that the club can offer a player. And I think where we are at the moment, we are in a really good position to offer a good sporting package. Look, we don't know too much about the Varane potential deal. We don't know his real reasons for wanting to leave. I'm still relatively sceptical about it, because he's sat alongside Sergio Ramos and Pepe for the bulk of his career, and they do all the the dirty work, so to speak. But that tends to be where people center themselves or put themselves around. So
yeah, fair points, mate. God, I couldn't get my words out there. Connor, you wanted to come in, buddy? Go for it, Brian.
I think, am I the only one that's kind of happy he's rejected? I kind of want this saga to be over, to be honest. I'm a bit sick of talking about this every week, and even mid-season we get this. Oh, he might leave, he might stay, he might sign a new contract, oh, he's looking elsewhere. Honestly, I'm so past. He's a brilliant footballer, and I was singing his praises throughout the Euros. He was absolutely fantastic in that French team. I think we had a discussion, I think it was me and you, Mark, about how much France actually makes a difference, because he's had a lot of chances at United. You could say we needed a CDM alongside him, and I respect anyone's opinion if that's what they really think about him at United. His best season, or the best performances we've seen at United, is when he's alongside Matic. But we've also seen him play good performances this season when he's been playing alongside Fred. So we've seen him play well for United, just not consistently over a season. And I raised this about the whole thing with France. He looks good for France because it's one-off games. International friendlies are 2 matches, 3 matches at most. Euros is 7, 8 matches at most. Pogba's done that for United, but not consistently. And to be honest, I'm just sick of this will he, won't he go. I'd rather players that actually want to be here. And I get everyone's point that Raiola's driving this. If Pogba really wanted to stay, he'll have enough power over Raiola to say, I want to stay, get me a bigger contract here, or change your agent. He's his own person. I get it, he's got an agent, but he's still his own person. I don't know the ins and outs of how agents work and things like that. But if he really wanted to stay, he'd kick up a fuss and want to stay.
Sorry, Connor, you bring up a really good point there, actually, about obviously changing your agent. And I think you remember rightly, maybe 3 or 4 years ago now, 5 years ago, when Mourinho bought Lukaku in, he got him to change his agent because he was with Mino, and then he went to is it the Rock with Jay-Z?
Rock Nation.
Rock Nation. Thank you very much, Jamie. I knew you'd know that. Yeah, Rock Nation with Rashford. He was there until recently, wasn't he? But so it can be done. And you're right. I think an agent really is just an entourage. It's your best mate. He's going to get you the best deal, and he probably is a wonderful, wonderful super agent. But it's just it is. I totally agree with you, Connor. I love Paul Pogba. I think he's been given a lot of unnecessary criticism, some criticism that I think he deserves, but I'm a bit sick of this as well. And I think both he and the club will be better off without each other in the end. If he stays, great. If he doesn't, I've said this before, we are not about one man, and we will move on. It's not the end of the world. And I think if we can get 50 million. 50 million for him, I think. That might be a bit short for me, but I think that's probably going to make everybody happy. Who was going to jump in next?
Can I say one more quick point just on that one before I think Henry or Charlie wanted to jump in? Yeah. When I'm talking about Pogba not wanting to stay, by the way, there's probably a lot of players at United. I think as fans, we expect every player to be Man United fans. To have the duvet, have the curtains, and everything else Man United all around the wall. When in reality, a lot of them probably aren't fans. The difference and the issue I've got with Pogba, and yes, Raiola is a massive part of this, is all of the noise that you get around it. There's probably a lot of players, De Gea's probably one of them, that wants to leave or is looking elsewhere, but you don't hear anything of it because he's respectful to the club and it actually is dealt with in the right way. So when talking about Pogba not wanting to leave, good luck to him. I think he's a brilliant player if he does want to leave, but there's right ways of doing it. And I think my issue with Pogba and why I get so kind of heated about it is because we've had this since the day he came back. It was the transfer window after the one he joined. They were talking about, is he going to stay? So I think it's best for both parties. It'll do him good if it is PSG. So I think he'll do really well over there and probably win some trophies. So good luck to him. It's good for both parties. If we can get some money, not let him go on a free, and it'll be good for his career if he goes back to France.
My nan could win trophies in the PSG squad. So yeah, fair play to him. Charlie, you wanted to come in and say something, bro?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't blame Pogba, because if you actually look at what PSG are building over there, they're building a project that it has to be their time, really. I know in the Champions League they've fallen short and they've bottled it, and people think Mauricio Pochettino is obviously a bottle merchant and all this, but I still think he's a very good manager. I think they've signed Donnarumma, Wijnaldum, Ramos, Hakimi. They get Pogba, they've got Mbappe, Neymar, Verratti, Marquinhos. They've just got such a strong team. And I just think, obviously, you'd have them for the French League, the Cup, and then obviously the Champions League is the big one for them. But I don't blame Pogba for leaving. I think he's been moved. I don't think he's been as good, as consistent as we all wanted. I think we know. I think he's Man United's best player on his day. Nobody's close for me. But on his day it's that saying, isn't it? On his day, you've got to turn up every week, and he hasn't. But yeah, I think he's been moved, shoehorned in around. He's played in the pivot. He's played at 10 in Ollie's interim as an attacking midfielder, and he was just fantastic. He's played on the left. He's even played on the right sometimes last season. And I just think it's time for him to go. I think for the benefit of his career, I think he should leave. And obviously it gives us 50 million towards the transfer budget, which should also, by the way, be added by the sale of Lingard as well, who should be sold for around 15 to 20 million. So that should really fund Varane and maybe a Trippier or something like that. So yeah, I think that's the best for him, just for him to go.
Yeah, I think it's obviously the general consensus. Pogba, it would be good for everybody, and I'd love it if he stayed. I really would, but I wouldn't be too disheartened if he left. Jamie, what were your thoughts on this, mate? You wanted to come in. I've seen a lot of. I just wanted to read this comment first, actually. It might not be all about Raiola, because he's absolutely right. If Pogba actually wanted to leave, he probably would have left in the last few years. He's had probably a few opportunities. I should imagine clubs did come in for him. What are your thoughts on that? And then anything else you want to talk about, please, buddy?
I imagine that clubs probably did come in for him, but whether any of them matched the financial package that we were giving him at the time, whether they were willing to pay the fee, because obviously I think we were quite stingy. We were never going to let him go for, a massive loss on what we paid. We got enough stick for signing a former youth player back for a world record fee. So if we then sold him for 45, 50 million, whatever it was at the time, that, Woodward probably would have been scared that he would have been even more of a laughing stock than he was. So I know there's probably an idea there that he could have left if he wanted to, but then at the same time, we always saw it every time he went away on international duty. His brother would be out in the press, Raiola would be out in the press. There was always stories, and Pogba had every opportunity to stamp the stories out, to tell his brother to shut up, and to sort of take control of his own, his own player identity, and he never did that. And for me, what I find interesting is that must cause quite a bit of discourse amongst the squads. Like, we see that Pogba is obviously a very popular man in the dressing room. Every single football player seems to love Paul Pogba. You always see him around players, and every time he returns to the French squad, he seems like he's just this larger than life character. And there's some big names in that France squad, yet he seems to be the biggest. So it's a weird one, because if I'm his teammate and every time he goes away, I'm sitting there scrolling through Twitter or whatever, and I see an interview with, Florentin Pogba saying that, it's his dream to go and play for Real Madrid. And I'll be going, well, here's a thought, Paul. Why don't you fuck off and go play in Real Madrid then? Because I'm bored of reading these stories. So again, like everyone said, I love him. I think Connor hit the nail on the head before. The idea of, we like this idea that players go to sleep in the United pajamas and stuff like that. And I think some of them probably, while they might not actually wear the pajamas, some of them have that mentality. Bruno clearly loves the club massively. The likes of obviously Rashford and Greenwood, the boys that came through the academy, do. So there are players in there that clearly have United at heart. I don't think Pogba's one of them. I think I'm tired of convincing myself that he does. He joined us from Le Havre, or I'm sure it was Le Havre anyway, when he was a kid.
Yeah, it was.
But did he have that big of an affinity with us? He said he didn't really get on with Fergie that well. Fergie promised him a lot and then never really came through because it wasn't his time. He left us at a pivotal point, and he probably has more of an affinity with Juventus because it was his time to develop. The only thing I will say about it, what I find bizarre, is this is a weird summer to decide to leave. We finished second in the Premier League. The signings that we're on the course to make this summer is probably going to be our best transfer window we've had in years. And it just seems a bit of a weird position to jump ship. And I do think it's an interesting phrase to use, Charlie. And obviously, I respect everyone's opinion, but I don't view PSG as a project. I don't think you can throw £1 billion at a squad of 11 players over the course of a few years and call it a project. That's just, some trigger-happy man with a lot of money going, who can we buy that's going to, And again, you questioned Donnarumma there. Like, he was, probably one of the best keepers in the world. He was at a club that he was at since he was a kid. He's been their number one since he was 16. Like, the guy's played 400, 500 games of professional football or something stupid like that already. And he's only 21, 22. Those stats are probably not accurate, by the way. I'm just, on a roll.
Close enough.
Yeah. Like Hakimi joined a really exciting inter squad, was looking, looked really bright. And again, they get a lot of money thrown at them, and they go over to France. And again, you're not telling me anyone's really happy in France for the whole of their career. Ronaldinho went and took the piss out of that league, and then went, I'm going to play somewhere else, and nothing's changed in my opinion. So again, I agree with what everyone says. Pogba's going to go there. He's in his prime at the minute. He's 27, 28. He's going to go spend 3 years in France, and then he'll finally probably get his move to Real Madrid when he's 31, 32. And go out and play there for a bit, I reckon. But if he goes, he goes. But like everyone said, I'm bored. Like, this has to be the last summer we have this saga. Whether that's because he leaves or whether it's because he sacks Raiola and commits, I don't know. But there you go. Sorry, that was a bit longer than I thought.
No, honestly, mate, that's not a problem. I think you made some good points there, actually, and I was going to bring this up earlier, and you reminded me. Someone mentioned about a French contingent coming in the form of Varane. We've been looking at maybe Camavinga. Surely, as you said, wouldn't that be the wrong time? Like, wouldn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that this summer really, and it doesn't need to stop, it needs to continue. We're showing a bit of ambition. We're bringing in, hopefully, a world-class centre-back. We're bringing in players that Pogba wanted to see. We're bringing in potentially, well, not Camavinga. I don't even think it's probably going to happen. But, if him and Varane do come in, then you've got 2 French players then. And I just feel that it could be the wrong time for Pogba. I think he might have... the ship may have sailed for him at the wrong time, and we could go on and do bigger things. And with him, that would allow us to do even bigger things. You know what I mean? But yeah, great points there, Jamie. Henry, you wanted to make one last point. I'm going to move away from Pogba at the moment. This was supposed to be about 4-3-3, but with that breaking news, it's taken us by storm. But yeah, go on, Henry.
I was going to quickly mention about United's kind of recruitment and stuff. Everyone at the moment seems to think it's a foregone conclusion that we're going to get Varane and that we're going to get another defensive midfielder. This is Man United we're talking about. You know, I'm still at 50-50 as to whether we're going to get these players. I know because we got the Sancho deal, everyone thinks we're on a roll. I haven't heard much about the Varane deal recently. It seems to be taking a lot of time to get these things done, and they do, but this is United, so it's not a foregone conclusion that we're going to get all of these players at the moment. And if we do let Pogba go, we've got to replace him. I'm not having this, it's Van der Beek's year, or we've got to replace him because you've got to have squad depth. If you want to win trophies, you've got to have squad depth. You've got to be a, you know, say Bruno gets injured in a semi-final or gets another yellow card and is out of the final in a big game, and you've got Fred or McTominay to come in as a number 8. You've got to replace these players. So I've got almost a trust issue with United at the moment, and I don't think I'm alone. Where we've got to get another number 8. We've got to get a good number 8. If it's, you know, Camavinga or someone like that, I don't know, but we've got to get a defensive midfielder. We've got to get another right back, and then we're going to have to get another number 8 as well, and still a centre back because that's not done yet. So we've essentially got 5 deals that we're going to have to do if we let Pogba go in the space of 2 months. And it's already been 2 months of the transfer window? Do we really trust this recruitment team to get that done? I'm really not sure at the moment. And it could be really busy and we could get it all done. But at the same time, United in recent history under the Glazers have a history of not getting things done, not getting the right deals done. So I'm more worried about that because we want to be competing with City, who can rotate Foden and De Bruyne, you know, and Gundogan and players like that who are quality players. So we've got to be able to have those options on the bench. And Chelsea are the same. They're building for the future. They've got a really good squad and they keep progressing with Haaland. But we want to be competing with these squads, and we're going to rely on Fred and McTominay off the bench. Seriously, we've got to replace these players. And the Varane deal, I know people are saying, it's going to happen. I'm still not sure because this is Real Madrid we're talking about. You know, they could turn around and go, nah, you're right.
I share your pessimism actually, and I understand where you're coming from. I think these aren't done deals. We do seem to get ahead of ourselves, and until ultimately the player is there, signature signed, and holding up a bloody shirt, as we always say, it's always a bit difficult to know. But yeah, with regards to, it's a good point actually, Henry, about replacing players. We do need to replace the players that go out, and if Pogba goes, I do believe that would create a huge void in the team. I do because Bruno's not a Pogba player at all. Van der Beek
as well. And is that next summer's transfer budget? We're going to have to replace Cavani next summer with the top quality striker. We've got to take things into account, and it's tough, man. It's tough because I don't trust United. Just don't.
Yeah, and you're right, actually. We forget about that. Cavani's only going to stay for another year. Is Greenwood going to be that player? Stu won't think so. He might not be. And we will have to get someone in to replace. But hopefully the last few months, which needs to continue, by the way, and I'll make that point until I'm blue in the face, has really sent up a rocket up the Glazers' arse. And maybe we will see 2 summers. They know that we've got to get it. They know that they need to be on top of signings. Ollie's probably had a moan as well. You know, Ed Woodward's leaving, so he's got a bit more control. John Murtough's come in. I agree with what you're saying, Henry. I really do. But what I will say is I'll always give someone the benefit of the doubt. And this is the club that I love. And I feel that with John Murtough coming in, with what Ollie's done, with Ed Woodward going, I do think that the club's been steered into the correct direction, and I'm hoping that this is the summer where it changes. And I'm not saying that we're going to go out and spend millions and millions every year. I know we have done, and it's not always been the right players. But I think that, it could be the start of hopefully some good recruitment for a couple of years that might set us up. As I said, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, and we have to go on track record, and you're absolutely right to have that opinion. Right, I'm going to move back to 4-3-3. As I said, this is why we're here. So I'm just going to do a very quick fire round, and I'm going to ask you all very quickly, individually, if we were doing a 4-3-3, what your three in the middle would be. And that can include Matic, Van der Beek, Fred, McTominay, Pogba as well, Bruno. Trying to think if we've got anyone else. Pereira and Lingard. Yeah. So give me, Connor, you first, brother. What would your 4-3-3 be, mate?
Has it got to be current players? So
current players, and I'm not giving you any more hints.
Do you know what? I this is going to be. I'm basing this off Pogba leaving, right? So this is. I'm going to get so much hate for saying this. I'm going to say a midfield three of Matic, Bruno, and Lingard. Bear with me. I think Lingard, with the energy he's got in there, and we saw it with kind of West Ham, I think he could work with. I know Matic is getting on; he's not the quickest, but I think if you put Lingard and Bruno either side, I think that could work. So I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for that, but with current players, I don't know what else you could do. I mean, yeah, Pogba over Lingard, but I'm basing this off Pogba potentially leaving. So I don't know. Maybe Fred over Lingard, so Fred, Matic, and Bruno, but. I mean, I don't know. It kind of, like we've kind of, I think Charlie and Stu made the point. If you kind of go with two players like that, you're almost going back to a 4-2-3-1 because Bruno pushes up and Fred and Matic will drop deeper. So, yeah, I think I'm going to go Lingard, Matic and Bruno just to be different.
All right, that is very different. Thank you, mate. Jamie, it's all right, mate. Don't worry, don't be scared. What would your midfield... Sorry, bro. I'm doing a quick fire round, so bear with me. No, our midfield three, with our current crop of players, without Pogba leaving, and what would they be?
Oh, with Pogba leaving.
No, without Pogba leaving. You can use them as well.
Okay. Scott McTominay, Pogba, and Bruno. I think if we can short the defence a little bit, I don't see McTominay being the worst six in the world. I know he likes to roam forward, but I think he'll have license to do that if he's got a decent centre-half pairing behind him, and he can operate more box-to-box from a sixth position. We might end up having to win games 5-3, but I'm all for a bit of heart attack football.
I'm not, but thank you, mate. Charlie, yours, buddy.
With the current players we've got, I would change the midfield three depending on who we were playing. So if we were playing a team with more of a low block, 100% Nemanja Matic as the six, and I'd play. If Pogba leaves, I'll play Van der Beek and Bruno as the 2/8s. But if he doesn't, I would play Pogba and Bruno. But then against the Chelsea, Arsenal, well, Arsenal are not really a top six, are they anymore? Leicester's and teams like that, I would probably play a Matic, Fred, and Bruno probably. But I don't think you could play McTominay as a six. I think to win I don't think you could play Matic either realistically. But I think to win a title, you can't be winning games 5-3. You've got to be solid at the back. And I just think McTominay, I just think he's. I'm going to say this. People are not going to. I think he's one of the worst players we've got. I think just because he's a homegrown lad, I think he gets a little bit. I think they get compared a little bit, but I think Fred could be a more useful player than McTominay for Man United. Actually, I just don't think McTominay is good enough. So I would play Matic personally as a six.
Just quickly, actually, Emre, I'm going to take you out. Sorry, mate, I didn't mean to do that. A lot of love for Matic tonight. And I think personally he's a bit past it, very leggy these days, but really our best defensive midfielder. I just wish he had younger legs, so I can understand everyone's points. And really, if I've said this so many damn times, you want to get a number six, you get a 25-year-old Matic, and you're sorted, right? Henry, mate, what about yours?
Pereira, McTominay, and Fred. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. Don't throw your knives at me. No, I'm with Charlie. I've said it before, and I got hate for it. I think McTominay is one of the worst midfielders in the Premier League. He would not get into West Ham's team. He would not get into. I mean, would he really make it into like Norwich's team? Maybe at a push. He gets shuttled back into Scotland's centre-back position for a reason. He's not ahead of John McGinn because he's not better than him. So I think I think he'll be a journeyman throughout his career. And I think under other managers, I know Mourinho gave him some sort of like prize, like he was, like he was special or something. I don't understand why he did that. Because he's not a very, special talent when it comes to quality. So my actual one would be, God, this is tough. I just can't think of a DM. Like, sod it, put Maguire there or something. Honestly, better than Leggy, Matic, and Fred and McTominay. But I'd have Pogba and Bruno either side, but in a heartbeat.
Yeah, good ones there, and you know what? I'm kind of in agreement with you actually. I think it's again we've had this conversation. Number 6, pain in the arse position really, and that's going to be up in the air for everyone. And you would probably, you would play Bruno and Pogba in front. Stuart, what about yourself, bud?
It's a relatively straightforward pick, really, and the player would be DM out of our current 3. Would be McTominay. And the reason for that is because he has got a defensive area to his game. He can tackle. He's very quick with his feet. And he's not too bad in the old passing regime, i.e. 1 to 2, 3 yards, which is what a CDM should do. And anyone that's played centre-back in football, it is a bit of a progression, actually, or you kind of go backwards. You play CDM first, then you go back to centre-half. That's tends to how it works. Or you might go back to fullback, but mainly you play CDM, you go back to centre-half because you understand the game. And McTominay can defend. He's not my favourite player. I don't think he's our best player. You can't put Fred in there because he's just too random. And Matic, look, just send him to Roma. He's a great player, but he's just not good enough. Nobody's saying McTominay is a CDM. What we're saying is the players that we've got. You can actually mould a player. I spoke about this about Axel Tuanzebe. Should maybe look at reinventing himself as a right back. Players have got to look at their opportunities that present themselves with any given squad. For me, McTominay, if he's got any sense about him, would start to add a more defensive side to his game because he's not going to get in as an attacking central midfielder, if that's what you want to call it. And then I think Pogba will go in the summer, so I play Donny and Bruno around him. But then obviously, as I spoke about a 4-3-3 earlier, we could push Donny in there and bring in other players to compensate for that. But people are right. Look, I'm not a fan of Fred. You know this. I've spoken about it. Or Matic. I'm not a fan of any of them. But when you look at the current 3, you got to look at who's going to give you the ability to play a CDM. And McTominay offers you a tiny bit of ability to play a CDM.
McTominay is not that. Oh, shit. Okay. Sorry.
That's the difference between, it's not about whether he is a CDM or not, as Brian Knights pointed out. It's not the point. The point is, in professional football and in football in general, it's all about aptitude and attitude. And I talk about this all the time. And if you've got an aptitude and you've got a willingness and you can play football, you can read the game, and you've got a level of intelligence, you're okay.
Mark, I asked you a question, might have been on our podcast last season, whether out of the top, I think it was the top 6 I chose, does McTominay get into, I said McTominay and Fred, but do they get into, either of them, get into any of those top 6 sides that were in the Premier League last year?
Yeah, I do remember that actually, mate, and I can't remember what I said. But to be honest with you, yeah, as a defensive midfielder, absolutely not. But I think we've seen that McTominay plays better further forward.
Can I just interject quickly? I'm just going to say one player to you guys, Jordan Henderson.
I was literally just about to say that.
He's fucking useless. but he was absolutely pivotal to the way that Liverpool played in their title-winning side. And he's no better than McTominay. And he's
But he
no
played alongside a DM, didn't he?
I disagree with you, Stu.
He played alongside Wijnaldum, and Wijnaldum's a bit of he's more of an 8 than Wijnaldum.
But they played a 3 normally. They normally play a 3 with Fabinho or Keita, who are more defensive than Henderson.
But don't forget, Fabinho later on in the season had to play at centre back. Didn't I know Henderson was injured, but he still had to play at centre half. Look, my point being, you can adapt if you want to as a player. You can adapt, and the players that we've got, the current squad that we've got, if you take Pogba out of the equation, you can't trust Fred. Matic is too slow. You've got one option.
Yeah, just quickly as well on what Stu's saying about adaptation. Everyone's now talking about Pogba at left attacking mid. Pogba's not a left attacking mid, but he's adapted well to that position in our team. So if you're going to talk about players adapting, Pogba's a prime example because he's not a left winger, is he? Let's be honest.
And don't forget, we're talking about our current squad. We're not talking about signing a specialist CDM. So you can only go with what you work for. And a lot of you guys were putting a double pivot back in.
You know what?
We can't play double pivot.
I'm going to disagree with you ever so slightly. I actually think that Pogba is a very good attacking inside left forward, not a winger. He did that at Juve a lot, and I think this is where his everybody's idea of the flair player that they want him to see in the way that he was playing at Juve was exactly that when he was playing at the left-hand side. And I think actually going into the new season with Rashford going into surgery, potentially, I think that actually if Pogba does stay, I'd play him. I'd have Fred still as a defensive midfielder. I know he lacks a little bit of simpleness and passing and a few things. But actually, if you can try and give him the benefit of the doubt again, he was okay for a number of games this season before Pogba then started coming in and doing excellently, not as a DM, but Fred was great. And also when Bruno, before Bruno came in the January, him and McTominay did it very, very well and kept us in it for a long time. So I feel that I would play Fred. I'd play Bruno as a number 8. I'd play Donny as a number 10, and I'd throw Pogba up to the top left. That's what I'd do.
I changed my answer quickly. Joe Garner. Why? I forgot about him completely.
James Garner.
What? Joe Garner? Why would I say Joe Garner? Jimmy Garner. That's the one.
Jimmy Garner needs a loan.
He's at Preston or something, isn't he? I don't know.
Not
Jimmy Garner. I completely forgot about him. On loan at Forest, and I think statistically he's better progressively than every single one of the players we've got in that position. Honestly, just a thought. That's all because he
needs a Premier League loan. He needs to go off to Brighton.
We were talking about this the other day because I was going to say Jimmy Garner in my side, but the problem there is that if you bring him back in from Forest. Stick it, and again, I know I'm probably thinking a bit too deep into this now, but if we throw him straight into the 6 in a season where we're learning to play the 4-3-3 and he doesn't hit the ground running, it'll just bank all his confidence again. Like he'll regress. So I agree with Stu, and we spoke at length about this. He needs to go on loan to a Premier League side, mid-table Premier League side where he can develop his craft a little bit more. But I agree, I rate him so highly in terms of his intelligence. He seems very press resistant. He breaks the lines like with ease, and as we saw with Forest, he can strike a fucking ball. Sorry, he can strike a ball.
What if he swims? That would be amazing for me. What if he doesn't sink in a pressure situation and he swims? We've got it sorted for the next 5 years. Yeah,
definitely. I just think he needs that time to find his feet. He didn't have the best loan at Watford, and luckily, he came out swinging at Forest and did really well. And I just think he needs to capitalise on that now, and then we can, really look at him in the next 6 to 12 months.
Just saying as well, there's a brilliant discussion on All for United. So if anyone is watching, go and check out. It was Stu, Jamie, and I can't remember who else is on the show. Spoke in detail about Garner and Levitt. The video went out yesterday, I believe. So definitely go and check that out. Some good points made in that one.
Yeah, it was some very good points. Thank you for that, Connor. Great little plug there, you absolute baller. So I'm just going to move on to one last subject that we were going to talk about. First of all, I just wanted to say the comments tonight have been absolutely fantastic. Some real great discussions, lots of nice arguments. Try and keep it calm, but yeah, really, really good to see. So thanks everybody for tuning in and getting those in. And I'm sorry if I missed any. Right, last topic. Donny van de Beek I absolutely love the man, and I think he's been a little bit unfairly criticised. And all of you will know my points on this because I've spoken about it. Probably not with you, Henry, so much. But I really love him as a player. I think he is intelligent, and I think he's not been really given a fair crack of the whip. And I think that he will work well as a number 10 in a pocket of space when you've got a ball progressor like Bruno sitting behind you, and then a DM shoring up that defence and allowing you to play further forward. Yeah. So I would like to see a little bit more of him, and I don't think he was given a fair shot. He definitely won't believe in. I'm going to come to Connor first, mate. Donny van de Beek.
I knew you'd do this. Do you know what? And I've said this repeatedly all through the season, and this is not just from his United days, right? That Ajax team I'm going to compare it to almost like the Liverpool side. They had a very good system under a good manager or a good coach, with a load of good, not world class or amazing players that worked well for that system. Liverpool are a prime example of that, which is why you see Jordan Henderson getting all the praise in the world when he's actually a bang average player. Now, I'm not saying Donny van de Beek is bang average. I just don't think he's as good as everyone is making him out to be. Is he on a Bruno Pogba level? No, he isn't. I don't even think he's that much better, to be honest. And I disagree with what Charlie and Henry were saying, although I respect your opinions. But I don't think Donny is a million times better than what McTominay is offering. That Ajax team, you had Dusan Tadic in it that looked world class. Now, are we saying that we should bring players like that in the team? De Ligt is a young player, I know, but he hasn't looked that good in the Serie A for Juventus. So there's a lot of players in that Ajax team I think were massively not overhyped because they were, well, I was one of their biggest fans watching them in that season, 18-19, I think it was. I just don't think Van der Beek is the answer to all of our problems, and certainly not a Pogba replacement, in my opinion, going into this season. I would love so much to be proved wrong, and I really hope he becomes a catalyst for United moving forward, but I just don't see the hype around him at the moment.
Connor, I really thought you weren't going to be like that, you bastard.
I know. Why did you come to me first?
Well, because I thought that you were ready to go, and just disappointed that you don't agree with me. But anyway, it happens. Charlie, mate, you wanted to go in next. What are your thoughts on Van der Beek? Do you think he's been given the crack of the whip? Would you like to see him in the team? Would he potentially have room for your three in the midfield?
Yeah, it'd be one of the first names on the team sheet for me.
Good man.
I'm going to explain something. In the last sort of 10 games of the season, the best performance as a team we played was away at Wolves in that last Premier League game of the season. And there is no sort of secret why that happened. It's because we had very intelligent footballers on that pitch. Nemanja Matic, Donny van de Beek, Juan Mata, Dan James played very well, Elanga, Ahmad. I thought it was fantastic. And that performance was better than the performance we had against Fulham towards the end of the season, Villarreal, Leicester, Liverpool, etc. Now, I know it's Wolves, and I know Wolves are a little bit negative, and Wolves sit back, and that helped. But I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer played his best midfield two against Wolves, and that's the midfield two I would have played in the Villarreal final. I would have played Matic and Van der Beek. I would have played Pogba on the left, Greenwood on the right, Bruno at 10, and I would have played Cavani at front, and Rashford would have been on the bench for me because he just didn't deserve to start. So that's what I would have done. And I think under a more experienced manager and under better coaches, I think that Van der Beek would have been used more last season. I think he is a very clever footballer.
Just quickly, sorry, mate. What were the midfield against Wolves? What was the midfield three, sorry?
The midfield two, I believe, was Matic and Van der Beek in the pivots with Mata at 10. That was the midfield in the last league game of the season, I believe. Am I right in saying that? I think that was right.
Yeah, I think you're right, bro. I think you're right, yeah.
But that's the midfield two I would have played against Villarreal, because I think McTominay next to Pogba is carnage. We've seen it before. Pogba next to McTominay just doesn't work. And that I would have actually played McTominay and Fred against Wolves, and I would have played Matic and Van der Beek against Villarreal, because I think Matic as a progressor is, if you actually watch Nemanja Matic as a progressor, far better than McTominay in terms of his passing, and Van der Beek picks up very clever positions against a low block, more effective than Bruno Fernandes probably would be.
Matic is too slow though, Charlie.
No, the thing is,
slow, and he's all left foot. He hasn't got a right foot, so he'll never turn on his right. He'll always turn on his left. And for a CDM, that's a real problem. You've got to be dual-footed as a CDM. You watch Matic; he has a real problem of going to his left all the time. He just looks left. He never looks right. It's not. You can't do that as a CDM. He was a bit better when he was younger, but right now he's just all left-footed.
The thing is, Stu, against a team like Villarreal, we knew what we were going to be up against. We were going to be up against a low block, nasty Unai Emery, and McTominay was playing alongside Pogba, wasn't he? So McTominay was going to play the more deeper role. So what we actually had was they weren't really pressing McTominay. So there would have been no difference. You could have taken Matic. You could have taken Matic off after 60 minutes. I'm not saying keep him on for 90, but Ole Gunnar Solskjaer should have made a substitute. Well, we all know, but I could go on hours about the final.
We all know about that.
But Van der Beek, the conversation about Van der Beek, he's shown it at Ajax. I know what Connor's saying, and I understand that, but he wouldn't have been in that team if he wasn't up to scratch. He's a fantastic player. But I said this before. I don't trust the coaching staff to have the ability and experience to be able to use this 4-3-3. I think it'll go into. I think they'll just rip it up after 2 games. I really do. I don't think they're good enough. I think to win this title, you're gonna have to get 95 points. You can only afford to lose 3 or 4 games, and you can only draw a few. We're gonna have to be near perfect next season, and I think Van der Beek should be one of the first names on the team sheet. But as I said, I don't trust. I think with Sancho coming in, I think that will help Donny van der Beek, because I think they might play on the same wavelength. And I think with Martial on the left, I think that would be better. But I think with Rashford and Bruno, I don't think Van der Beek is sort of on their wavelength. I think their ball retention isn't good enough, and I just don't think that suits Van der Beek. So I think it's better with Martial and Sancho. I think that will suit him better.
That is a wonderful, wonderful point, Stu, and I actually think you're spot on there. No one, and I'm not saying you should criticise anyone, but no one does seem to want to pull up Rashford or Bruno for the mistakes that they make. And I think you're absolutely right. I'm not saying they're not intelligent players, but I think that Van der Beek will synergise much better with Martial, because his link-up play, is on the ball, off the ball movement is actually pretty good, right? And also, what was the other name you used?
Jadon Sancho as well.
Jadon Sancho, exactly. And I think you're absolutely right. I think there's, they're quick movement, quick passing, and intelligent players. And again, this is not saying that Bruno and Rashford aren't intelligent, but with the type of players that those 3 are, there is a lot of intelligence there. Stu, you're nodding your head at me, bro. Give me some more.
Well, look, I tend to agree with everything you guys have said. Charlie is spot on about the Villarreal game. It's just the problem with Matic is, as I explained, that's my only criticism of Matic. With regards to Donny van der Beek, you're dealing with a super intelligent footballer, a footballer that can make space by standing still, can walk into space by just stepping a yard to the right or a yard to the left. The biggest problem with the players last year, there was 2 issues. First and foremost, I think the Dutch league finished, didn't it, in February, the end of February. So he wasn't. I don't think he kicked a ball until he came to us in July. So it took him probably a bit longer to get up to speed than what it should. And secondly, when you look at the runs and the space that Donny van der Beek finds, our players, for whatever reason, they weren't on the same wavelength. I can't explain why, but there was time and time again, Donny would be in space and he was never receiving the ball. So Donny is the type of player that needs to have the ball. He'll work it very, very well. He's got really good feet. He's got a left and a right foot, but his touch is spot on. He's a good tackler. He's probably not so good in the air, But DVB next season, you'll probably start to see the best of him. I'm kind of with Charlie on that. I think he needs to be. Sorry, Connor. I think he needs to be. On our team sheet. Look, you need an air of intelligence in any footballing team, but you need players around that particular player that can really feed off it. And like you say, energize off it. Bit of synergy, I suppose. And that's what Donny does. Now, unfortunately, that's the type of footballer that gets completely missed. That's the type of footballer that gets missed because fans are always looking around. Well, what's he do with it? Can he run 50 yards with it? Can he beat 3 players with it? Can he do a worldy Hollywood fucking pass all the time? You don't need a group of players that do that. You need 1 or 2 that can do that. And you need Donny who can do the more simple stuff. That's why Mata, and Charlie's right about Wolves, by the way. That's why Mata was absolutely sublime against Wolves, because his intelligence, the way he would just drift into space, and the Wolves team couldn't cope with him, and that allowed Matic and the players in and around him, Alanga, to really flourish. And Donny will give that. He'll need to build into it, but he will give us that type, and that's why he'll work really, really well in the 4-3-3.
Donny is our good.
Yeah,
he is our good man in waiting.
Yeah,
goal scorer, cultured player.
Poor Connor.
Specialist in the art of football. He is one of the best at it.
Yeah,
and
I agree with that. And listen, Connor's not always going to be right. People are wrong, and it's just one of those things. Right, listen, I'm going to wrap up now. Listen, I just wanted to say comments, as I said earlier, exceptional. Great to see, great debates going on, brilliant. I want to see some more likes though. So any of you that are watching now, please like. If you haven't subscribed, please do. And right, so tomorrow we've got a new show with your man James. I think I'm going to be on that. I think Stu, you might be on that. Called Timeline Talk. You're muted, Stu, but what is it? 9 o'clock. So 9 p.m. tomorrow night. So I want to see everybody that was in the course tonight back there tomorrow. Listen, boys. Always great to see you. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much, everybody. Really, really great comments tonight. And I'll see you all very, very soon.